What a fleet captain is in Star Trek, and why Pike doesn't become an admiral instead. Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Captain Christopher Pike Anson Mount becomes a fleet captain after his time in command of the USS Enterprise, raising questions about why he didn't become an admiral. As portrayed by Jeffrey Hunter, Captain Pike was originally going to be the leading man of Star Trek, the original series. However, NBC rejected Star Trek's original pilot, The Cage, and most of the show's cast were replaced. The TOS two-parter, The Menagerie, later reused footage from The Cage, establishing Christopher Pike as the captain of the Enterprise prior to Captain James T. Kirk William Shatner. By the time of The Menagerie, Pike had suffered a horrific injury while rescuing several Starfleet cadets, leaving him confined to a wheelchair and barely able to communicate. At the time of his accident, Pike held the position of fleet captain and had already passed command of the Enterprise to Kirk. Pike learned of his fate in Star Trek: Discovery Season 2, and the knowledge continues to shape many of his choices. This could be why Pike remains a fleet captain rather than an admiral, but audiences will have to wait for more Strange New Worlds to see Pike's future play out. The difference between fleet captain and admiral in Star Trek explained. A fleet captain has different responsibilities than a regular ship's captain, often commanding several vessels or Starfleet facilities. The position of fleet captain allowed one officer to be placed in command of multiple vessels or stations, often making them the highest-ranking officer during important missions. For example, Captain Pike was temporarily promoted to fleet captain in Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Season 2, Episode 5, Lost in Translation, taking over command of the USS Farragut and Bavali Station as it was brought online. Fleet captain is ultimately less of a rank and more of an honorary title given to particularly exceptional officers. Ranking just below a commodore, it has a more active role in ongoing missions and training exercises than an admiral. An admiral is the highest normal rank in Starfleet and a considerably higher rank than a fleet captain. A fleet captain sometimes acts as a chief of staff for an admiral, serving as an intermediary between the admiral and the officers under their command. In Starfleet, a fleet captain might also oversee training exercises, as Captain Pike did before his accident. Star Trek has not yet revealed why Captain Pike was only a fleet captain at the time of his accident, rather than an admiral. By the end of his tenure as Enterprise captain, Pike surely had the credentials to become an admiral, but there are a few reasons why he might have remained a fleet captain. It's possible Pike chose to remain a fleet captain because he knows he has to save the cadets in the explosion that cripples him. Plus, like many Starfleet captains, Pike enjoys being on the bridge of a starship more than sitting behind a desk. Knowing his time is short, Pike may have chosen to take on a more active role for the remainder of his Starfleet career. It's also possible that Strange New Worlds could alter the Star Trek timeline a bit and have Pike's injury occur while he's still in command of the Enterprise. As seen in Lost in Translation, Pike could have been temporarily promoted to fleet captain. Regardless, Captain Pike will go down in history as one of Starfleet's greatest captains, but it remains to be seen how Star Trek: Strange New Worlds will depict his future. The Star Trek universe is filled with elaborate ranks, titles, and designations, each with deep lore and often mysterious implications. One such intriguing title is Fleet Captain, a rarely used designation that pops up only a handful of times across Star Trek's decades-long run. Most notably, it is the final rank held by Captain Christopher Pike before his tragic accident, an event that would define the rest of his existence. But why does Pike become a fleet captain and not follow the expected path to admiralty? What exactly does a fleet captain do, and how does it fit into the broader hierarchy of Starfleet? Let's set course into the heart of this mystery. Fleet Captain, the enigmatic title. In most Star Trek series, the Starfleet hierarchy is straightforward: ensign, lieutenant, commander, captain, admiral. But nestled quietly in the background is the elusive title of Fleet Captain. Introduced in the original series, the title is mentioned briefly in The Menagerie when Spock refers to Pike as a former fleet captain. Unlike the more administrative role of an admiral, a fleet captain appears to remain a field officer commanding multiple ships or coordinating fleet-level operations while still being active in space. It's a bit of a hybrid role, more responsibility and prestige than a standard captain, but without the desk-bound bureaucracy of an admiral. Essentially, a fleet captain is a senior captain entrusted with leading or overseeing an entire fleet or task force, often during wartime or large-scale exploratory missions. While the title hasn't appeared often, when it does, it's significant. Besides Pike, the only other person ever called a fleet captain in canon is Garth Vizir, a legendary Starfleet hero whose descent into madness was documented in Whom Gods Destroy. Like Pike, Garth was considered a tactical genius, further suggesting that the title is reserved for exceptional captains, those whose service and leadership have reshaped Starfleet history. Why Pike doesn't become an admiral? Given his record, Christopher Pike might seem like an obvious candidate for promotion to admiral. He's everything Starfleet stands for: courageous, diplomatic, intelligent, and morally grounded. So why doesn't he make that leap? The answer lies not just in military structure, but in Pike's character and fate. 1. Pike values connection over command. Throughout Star Trek, Discovery, and Strange New Worlds, Pike is shown to be a people-first leader. He leads from the front, not behind a desk. He cooks for his crew, listens to their personal problems, and commands from the bridge, not an office at Starfleet Command. Becoming an admiral would take him away from that role. Admirals don't pilot starships. They give orders from headquarters, attend diplomatic briefings, and become part of the political machinery Pike has always seemed hesitant to embrace. His love is the frontier, the unknown, the stars. And that makes the fleet captain title ideal. It recognizes his leadership and strategic brilliance while allowing him to remain in the thick of exploration, something an admiral's role would likely prohibit. 2. A fleet captain's job suits his destiny. By the time Pike is promoted to fleet captain, he's already aware of the accident that will ultimately leave him paralyzed and mute, a fate revealed to him during the second season of Discovery. That knowledge colors every decision he makes from then on. He chooses not to fight that destiny, but to fulfill his role with grace, ensuring the future unfolds as it must. Accepting the fleet captain role is his way of maximizing his influence on Starfleet's path without seeking long-term administrative power. It allows him to contribute meaningfully in the short time he has left before his injury. It's also poetic. The title, fleet captain, implies someone who commands many, who leads beyond a single ship. Pike's wisdom, empathy, and tactical mind were essential to shaping the next generation of officers, including James T. Kirk. His impact would ripple far beyond the USS Enterprise. The legacy of Fleet Captain Pike. Pike's ultimate fate is both tragic and heroic. His injuries, sustained during a training accident while rescuing cadets, leave him physically broken, but he remains a symbol of sacrifice and leadership. That's why Spock risks everything in the menagerie to return Pike to Talos 4, where he can live in peace, even if only as an illusion. Pike's story also subtly redefines what it means to serve. Leadership isn't about rank. It's about purpose. By declining the traditional promotion path, Pike shows us that true command isn't measured by how many stars sit on your collar, but by how